The evening sun stretched long shadows across Maple Street as Margaret Hayes rested on her usual bench near the corner bakery. Her blonde hair, tangled and unwashed, shimmered faintly in the golden light. She wore a cream-colored dress that had once been elegant, now faded and frayed at the hem. She had been someone else once, someone who attended dinner parties and gallery openings, but that life was gone. Margaret pulled her thin cardigan tighter around her shoulders against the autumn chill. For 3 years, the streets had been her home. 3 years since the accident that took her husband, since medical bills drained their savings, since the foreclosure notice arrived at their door. She blamed no one. Life simply happened. As the street grew quiet, Margaret noticed smoke, thin tendrils curling from a second-story window across the street. Her heart skipped. "Fire," she whispered, and without hesitation, she ran. Her worn sneakers slapped the pavement as a terrified child's cries pierced the air. The building's front door was unlocked. She pushed inside and raced up the stairs 2 at a time, ignoring the burn in her lungs. The hallway thickened with smoke. Low and fast, she remembered David's fire lessons. Stay low, cover your mouth, move quickly. Apartment 2C. The door was hot, but it opened. Flames were climbing the curtains, devouring the ceiling. In the corner, a little boy clutched a stuffed elephant, his face streaked with tears. "It's all right, sweetheart," Margaret said, steady despite her fear. She wrapped him in her cardigan and sprinted down the stairs. Her dress caught on the railing, tearing further, but she didn't stop. Outside, fresh air filled her lungs as sirens wailed. Neighbors gathered, one woman throwing a blanket over the boy. "You saved him. You saved little Ethan." Margaret nodded, coughing, and slipped quietly back to her bench. Invisible, as she always was. 3 days later, a black car appeared near her bench, sleek, expensive, out of place on Maple Street. A tall man in a dark suit stepped out, holding a photograph. "Excuse me, I'm looking for someone who was here during the fire." Margaret froze, recognizing Ethan walking beside him, holding his stuffed elephant. "My name is Richard Bennett," he said, voice thick with emotion. "I've been searching for 3 days. My ex-wife told me what happened. That you ran into a burning building to save my son." Ethan looked at her knowingly. "That was you, wasn't it?" Margaret shook her head. "I just did what anyone would do." "No," Richard replied firmly. "Most people would have called 911 and waited. You ran in. You risked your life. I want to thank you properly and, if you'll let me, offer friendship." Ethan tugged his father's sleeve and handed Margaret a small stuffed dog. "For you," he said softly. "So, you're not alone." Tears filled her eyes as she accepted the gift. From that moment, a new chapter began. Richard came by often, alone or with Ethan. They shared stories of loss, rebuilding, and connection. Margaret learned that Richard had buried himself in work after his wife's death, almost losing his bond with Ethan. That fire reminded him of what truly mattered. Margaret realized that losing everything had freed her from superficial concerns. "Now I just try to be kind," she said. Richard paused, then offered her a role in his foundation, Bennett's Second Chances. "You have compassion, courage, and experience others can't teach," he said. She laughed, surprised and hopeful. 6 months later, Margaret stood in the lobby of the foundation, dressed neatly in blue, her hair washed and styled. She wasn't a charity case, she was the director of intake services, guiding others toward second chances. Richard appeared, holding Ethan's hand. "Ready for the grand opening?" he asked. "Ready," Margaret said, as the doors opened. Donors, volunteers, and people seeking help streamed in. Margaret thought of that night, the smoke, the fear, the little boy, and how one act of courage had changed everything. Ethan's laughter rang through the room, a reminder that sometimes, when we reach out for others, life finds a way to bring us home.